newest COVID-19 variant, Omicron, is the one to watch right now. Scientists have speculated that of all the other unnamed variants, Omicron evolved faster and with more mutations because it likely originated in someone with a compromised immune system, potentially someone with HIV. Stanford researchers, including Dr. Seth Hoffman, agree after finding similar evidence when treating a patient with uncontrolled HIV who contracted COVID several months ago.
She developed those mutations within a short time span, 15 days, where her immune system was not working properly to evade or control the COVID infection.
Dr. Hoffman says the HIV patient is an example of how someone with an already compromised immune system could spread a mutated form of COVID rapidly in public if she had not been isolated. But he says the most significant finding is that the patient responded so well to readily available AIDS treatment, and that allowed her to fight off the virus quickly, meaning battling the HIV pandemic could be key to slowing the COVID pandemic.
Several $1 million worth of precious PPE purchased with your tax dollars left outside in the rain.
Day and went straight to the San Mateo County Event Center, Gate 9, and couldn't quite believe what I found. Thousands upon thousands of boxes containing all sorts of brand new personal protective equipment, soaking in the rain. Stacks of boxes collapsing.
Oh, what a mess.
Too many to count. Some breaking open and spilling their contents.
Hospital gowns in all different sizes. Here's size M. There's large. And of course, here's XXL.
I also found pallets of face shields, vented goggles, and various types of coveralls.
Boxes upon boxes of PPE just rotting in the rain. How did this happen?
Our road to some answers and accountability started with a security guard. Remember, the county owns this property.
Can I help you?
I'm fine. I work at Channel 7. I'm Dan Noyes.
Okay.
I'm just taking some pictures.
Did somebody invite you to come on the property?
I don't need an invitation.
Pardon me?
I'm a taxpayer. I don't need an invitation.
Well, if you don't have an event, then you are not supposed to be on this property. That's it.
How costly was that mistake? Take a look at this box from DWL Studios. 100 non-sterilized protective gowns. A salesman told me they go for as much as $7.50 each, added up, and this pallet alone is worth $18,000.
Goggles.
These goggles with vents run $3.99 a piece, $478 worth in this box, among many laying in the rain. The load also includes 900 of these mop bucket ringers that sell for $70 each, a total of $63,000. I also found boxes and boxes of mop handles that run $25 each.
An idea of the amount of money we're talking?
I don't know. There's a lot of PPE out there, and
is it safe to say over $1 million?
I would say, oh yeah, I would say over $1 million.
Is it multiple millions, or?
I don't know, but it's there's a lot of PPE out there.
He immediately ordered county workers to bring the supplies back inside to run an inventory and see how much of it is salvageable. As they worked, Sky 7 gave the clearest view yet of how many pallets of PPE crumbled from the rains since last fall.
No, I wouldn't say it's impossible. I mean, we got rid of smallpox, right? I think we're talking years, though. This is years in the making to get this, totally, completely, really under control.
Cobb County Schools sent home its entire 5th grade today because of an outbreak of COVID-19.
Catching a number of parents off guard here, and the move further igniting a debate over both the school district and the state's decision to not mandate masks for school children.
But this grocery store is not the only one. Throughout California, a number of other issues are popping up at grocery stores in the state, including one in Palmdale, a Food for Less that had 21 employees test positive in just the past couple of weeks. Again, 21 employees. You see how big of a problem this is becoming.
We actually have a convergence of factors which really are making for what is, I think, going to be the darkest part of the pandemic over the course of the next 12 weeks.
Very interesting viral infection that we are seeing, or clinical pictures that we are seeing with the Omicron variant. It's totally different from the Delta, especially in regards of the loss of smell, taste, oxygen requirements, as well as what we call a tachycardia, an elevated pulse rate that we have seen quite a few times with the Delta variant. So what is the symptoms? The symptoms is actually quite easy. Someone said it's very much like a cold or a flu type of symptoms. Yes, I think we can say it's very similar to that. So it's what we will say, the body aches and pains, the muscle pain, the headache, and the tiredness or fatigue that would accompany it for about 1 to 2 days. Slight sore throat, and that's more or less the majority of patients complain coming into the surgery. And why that is important to understand is if you are not on the alert or on the lookout for these type of symptoms, you would easily miss it. They don't have a cough, a severe cough, and don't have a running or a blocked nose.
So many moms about this, and parents tell me that they have been going from store to store, sometimes spending hours in the car, and some of them have been to the point of tears trying to find baby formula.
Confirmed that the Houston area has recorded at least several dozen cases of the newer Mu variant.
Yes, our
The
brand.
paper also identified nearly 200 recurrent mutations that the researchers believe are helping the virus evolve and adapt to infecting humans.
Calling it the European strain of the virus. Scientists have determined that the COVID virus developed new spikes on its exterior, making it better able to cling on to cells and spread. But the D614G mutation, as it's called, doesn't appear to be as deadly, and that may help explain why the number of cases is exploding worldwide. It's normal and expected for a virus to mutate, but I spoke with researchers at the University of Washington who have a new concern, though, that the mutation will prevent us from finding a quick vaccine.
One of either you or Dr. Fauci were saying that the reason that we're not saying that natural immunity is protective as is a vaccine, even though there's recent publications showing that 6 to 8 months out, 92% of those with natural immunity have T cells, B cells, and antibodies that would be considered adequate to protect. And indeed, B cell continues to climb. That we don't have data. Now, in your response to Mr. Casey, you just mentioned that CDC has access to tens of thousands of EHRs. And I've been told that HHS or CDC has access to patient-identifiable data as to who tests positive. So I do that as a prologue. If we don't know that natural immunity confers protection against future infection, it's because we've decided not to look. Because I've learned that there is a cohort of people that we know have been previously infected. We've got the bench research showing that the triad of antibodies, T cells, and B cells are there, and that 92% of them are still there at 6 months out. So why have we not done the research showing that natural immunity confers protection against recurrent infection?
Yeah.
What percent of CDC employees are vaccinated?
We're actively encouraging vaccination in all of our employees and doing a lot of education and outreach in order to get our agency fully vaccinated.
One of the strictest vaccine mandates in the country has taken effect in the city of Los Angeles, and hundreds of people are not happy about it and willing to gather.
But we are over Grant Park in downtown Los Angeles, right across from City Hall, and we see a large group gathering and more people coming here, anti-vax protesters. There's a rally against mandatory vaccinations, law enforcement, firefighters. We've seen a lot of signs, no forced vaccinations, stop the mandate.
Socially distanced in their cars, even behind their masks. Robert says he didn't even recognize half of them.
Probably working in, let's say, an example of a $50,000 a year job, but living week to week by their paycheck. All of a sudden, 2 weeks later, they're done. They're out of money and they need help.
All races, all ages.
I'll be honest, a lot of people are scared and they don't know where the meals are going to come from.
More people have died in Illinois at this nursing home, Symphony of Joliet, than any other. More than 80 confirmed coronavirus cases have been reported here. 26 people have died, 24 residents and 2 employees.
COVID cases setting records now in more than 30 states, more than 500,000 new cases a day nationwide. Tonight, what the CEO of Moderna reportedly said today about the possibility of Americans now needing a 4th COVID shot and when.
A man in a white t-shirt throws blows at healthcare workers in scrubs outside a mobile vaccine site in Tustin. They say he showed up last week and started yelling at workers falsely accusing them of killing people. Protesters have repeatedly demonstrated outside its vaccine facilities, but they had been hoping tensions over the highly politicized public health crisis wouldn't escalate to physical attacks.
One of our employees, he got pretty bruised up.
3 workers ended up getting hit in the struggle to restrain the man. Police say he's 43-year-old Thomas Apollo. It appears he also struggled with 2 police officers trying to arrest him, and a total of 5 officers ran over to get him in handcuffs. Apollo was taken to a hospital for observation, and 1 worker with head injuries went to the ER. But they're not here to defend any particular point of view. They're just doing their jobs.
She's a high school teacher, now charged with endangering a child, according to a charging document just released. On Monday, Beam pulled up to this drive-through COVID testing site at Pridgeon Stadium and said her 13-year-old son was in the trunk because he had tested positive for COVID-19. She told police he needed additional testing, and she put him back there because she didn't want to get exposed. When the district's director of health services asked to see the child, she unlatched the trunk and he was lying down inside with no safety restraints. The director then called the police, and according to these documents, the child got out of the trunk and moved to the back seat.
The term flu-rona is definitely making headlines today.
It means that you have coronavirus and the flu at the same time. A dual infection case was detected actually at a testing center in Brentwood. A boy under the age of 18 was returning from a trip to Mexico with his family, and according to the testing center, his symptoms were not severe.
Well, you know, as individuals, we're susceptible to many different viruses, bacteria, and other infections, and there is no reason why you can't have more than one. So it is common for you to have influenza as well as a secondary bacterial infection. Early in the pandemic, in March and April, before we had people doing social distancing and staying at home, we did see patients with COVID infections as well as other upper respiratory infections. Those patients tended to be a little sicker and required more hospitalization in the intensive care unit. But as soon as we had the strict lockdowns and you know, patients stayed at home, started wearing masks, and the children stayed away from school, we did see a large drop in other respiratory viruses and essentially had no influenza cases in 2020.
Those who are not vaccinated are causing hospitals to become overrun again. I just spoke to the governor of New York. Every COVID-19 hospital means someone with a heart attack, cancer, or other serious illness may not get that bed and that life-saving care they need in the hospital.
Yeah, we're doing very, very well, very manageable. There's no crisis. So let me just give you a little bit of perspective. We have right now about 460 patients in our hospitals. That's less than 10% of our overall capacity.
Well, for one thing, you know, hospitals, most hospitals, certainly the ones that I've worked at, are always near capacity at any point in time. So whenever you have a slight uptick, you know, we start looking for beds or you start transferring patients. That's what went on through my whole professional career. So that's not anything new and different.
Mr. President, should Americans prepare to live with COVID forever?
7.1%.
Mr. President, should Americans prepare to live?
that COVID is here to stay?
No, I don't think COVID is here to stay. That having COVID in the environment here and in the world is probably here to stay. But COVID, as we're dealing with it now, is not here to stay. The new normal doesn't have to be. We have so many more tools. And so we're going to be able to control this. The new normal is not going to be what it is now. It's going to be better.
And I understand and I fully appreciate there is a level of malaise. We're 2 years into this thing. You know, we want to get back to normal. We all do. But we have to then do the tough and hard work of pushing through with solutions, understanding that there are going to be challenges.
But what we need to understand about the new Omicron variant is very, very transmissible. So a lot of people are going to get it. So to continue to frighten people and make them think that we're not making progress is really the wrong tack to take.
Experts say if you want to understand how COVID spreads, check your toilet. And just like what you'll find there, the news isn't all that pretty. Wastewater samples revealing record levels of coronavirus across the U.S.
Basically, wastewater does actually hold quite a bit of information for researchers. And for many years, it has been used in other parts of the world to measure everything from obesity to polio to even the opioid epidemic. But now we're seeing it used here at home to measure COVID levels. And the way researchers do that is they separate the larger particles from the wastewater and extract that genetic material. And then they're able to amplify that material to study it in greater detail. And so what we're seeing right now, as we've been hearing about for weeks and weeks now, is that coronavirus is just about everywhere. And the interesting thing about wastewater is that everybody does use the sewage system. So whereas people might not be able to get a clinical test, they might not go to a hospital, they might not go to a clinic, or they might just take something at home. Perhaps they don't even have symptoms. And so they don't even know that they're spreading COVID. But when you look at the wastewater, they're able to measure how much coronavirus is actually circulating within any given community.
People are manipulating rapid COVID tests, creating false positives, and they're posting the videos online. Those videos have already been seen by millions of people. Dr. Jeffrey Baird of the University of Washington says what's most troublesome is that people are wasting rapid tests while there's currently a national shortage.
Putting tap water on something that is, not intended to receive tap water as a sample, that doesn't mean that it doesn't work. That just means that you didn't follow the instructions.
A spokesperson for one of the companies producing those rapid tests says videos like these are just irresponsible.
When did you know that Omicron was going to spread this quickly? Obviously, you had the travel ban back in November from South Africa, but when did you realize it was going to be this?
Yeah, things are moving quickly, and I know people are concerned, so maybe we'll just step back, reiterate, we now are seeing Omicron in about 73% in our projections of what we have right now, and in some areas of the country, as you noted, the areas are 90% Omicron. But this pace, this speed by which Omicron has been, transmitting has been seen and mirrored in many other countries. And so we've been watching this carefully. We anticipated this. This is what we have been preparing for. There have been doubling times of this virus in other countries that have had the virus before us in the 1.5 to 3 day range. And so this is exactly what we anticipated. And it is why the president has been moving forward and today announced a 3-pronged plan to increase support and surge capacity in hospitals, to increase access to free tests, and to make sure that there's increased capacity for both vaccinations and for boosts. I really do want to say we're in a very different position now than we were just a year ago, because now we have the science, we have the tools that we need in order to combat this pandemic, and even the Omicron variant, and that includes getting vaccinated, getting boosted, and then practicing all those prevention measures that we've been talking about. And even for vaccinated and boosted people, that includes wearing a mask in public indoor settings.
We need to scale up testing so anyone who needs one can get a test. After 10 months of the pandemic, we still don't have enough testing. That's a travesty.
COVID is spreading so rapidly. If you notice, it just happened almost overnight. I don't think anybody anticipated that this was going to be as rapidly spreading as it did.
Now, Doctor, you said that you were prepared and you did anticipate Omicron spreading as rapidly as it did. If that's the case, why wasn't testing ramped up from December of 2020? If it was a travesty back then, why isn't it a travesty now?
So let me just be clear that when we learned about Omicron at the end of November and we started seeing what was happening in other countries, that is when we anticipated how quickly it could, in fact, transmit. But let me say, we recognize that there is a huge demand right now, not only just in the United States, but around the world for tests, and the government is taking action, and we recognize we have more work to do. So as you note, the president announced $3 billion to rapid tests and 500 million rapid tests soon to be available. But also we have 20,000 free PCR testing sites. And as we speak, we are setting up new federal testing sites in areas where there is increased demand right now.
At the end of the Trump administration, between September and December, we did 180 million free tests.
The only reason why we're in such a problem right now is that the Biden administration did not invest in testing between January and September. This just didn't hit us. Remember, in September with Delta, there were testing shortages, and they failed to meet the mark on improving the industry to provide the tests that people need.
You have one fatality that's listed as Omicron. Is that still true? And what about hospitalizations tied to Omicron? Do you have a sense of that?
What I can tell you right now is the vast majority of people who are in the hospital right now are unvaccinated. We have learned a lot about natural immunity, and we at CDC have recently released a scientific brief to demonstrate all that we know about natural immunity. What we can tell you with Omicron, even with natural immunity, is that there's increased risk of reinfection with Omicron if you've been previously infected compared to the prior variants. So even those with natural immunity, we are recommending that you get vaccinated and get boosted. And really what this is telling us, what Omicron is telling us, is with a variant that has this many mutations, we need a really high level of immunity, and that means getting yourself maximally vaccinated.
But if you have Omicron and you get through it, which most people are, does that provide immunity for Delta or vice versa?
Really important. We're starting to look at the studies now in the lab that will try and inform the question of the cross-reactive protection of Delta to Omicron and, in fact, of Omicron to Delta, and those studies are just emerging right now. We do know that there's less cross-protection from prior variants to Omicron, and the studies of whether Omicron will protect you from other variants, those studies are just emerging. And then, of course, the studies that are going to happen at the population level in the clinical situation are still emerging right now.
It is the last case scenario for overwhelmed hospitals, but nurses are concerned about this. The state now says healthcare workers who test positive for COVID can return to work immediately if they have no symptoms.
With the highly contagious Omicron variant sending more people to Bay Area hospitals and across California, the state issued new guidelines Saturday in an effort to make sure there is enough staff to handle the increase. Healthcare workers testing positive for COVID no longer have to isolate or test negative and can return to work immediately if they're asymptomatic. The new guidelines are in effect until February 1st. It's a last resort for hospitals. The move is a grave mistake that puts patients at risk.
We are very concerned that if you have healthcare workers that are COVID positive caring for vulnerable patients, that we can spread the COVID virus inside the hospital as well.
We reached out to the State Department of Public Health, which issued this statement saying the department is providing temporary flexibility to help hospitals and emergency services providers respond to an unprecedented surge in staffing shortages. Hospitals have to exhaust all other options before resorting to this temporary tool. Facilities and providers using this tool should have asymptomatic COVID-19 positive workers interact only with COVID-19 positive patients to the extent possible. And the state says COVID positive workers with no symptoms will need to wear an N95 respirator.
Yeah, so this is about cohorting, right? This is about having people who are already infected taking care of infected people. We did this for Ebola in West Africa. We've done it before. And it's kind of a, it's not one of the first things you'd put on in the playbook, but it is in the playbook, and but towards the end. And I think maybe the staffing issues are such that that it led the state to put this guidance out.
Loosening the precautions only makes the spread easier.
But Redding says instead of helping increase the number of healthcare workers, lifting the isolation requirements will only increase the chances of nurses getting other nurses sick.
Across the country today, a new wave of Pfizer booster shots for 12 to 15-year-olds.
It's kind of like a seatbelt or a helmet. You may crash, get the virus, you may fall, but it's just that extra layer of protection.
Nearly 17 million more kids will now be eligible for that third shot once they're 5 months out from their second dose. But nearly 9 million 12 to 17-year-olds remain unvaccinated, a record number of children, 4,400, now hospitalized across the country.
This is a picture of Seraphin and Diane Castillo after they boarded a Princess cruise ship for a 10-day New Year's celebration voyage to Southern California and back. Instead of celebrating, the couple say they've been isolating in their room, afraid to venture out after the entertainers for the ship had to quarantine due to a reported COVID outbreak. According to Seraphin, the cancellation followed a series of incidents in which he felt the Princess workers were lax in COVID precautions, and he says he filed a complaint with security. But Seraphin says he got no response and then found himself in a telephone runaround, calling first the CDC, then in order, he says he was referred to the California State Department, then the San Diego Public Health Department, to the Harbor Police, followed by the Department of Transportation, the Coast Guard, then back to the CDC, which this time told him to call the Public Health Department of the destination site, San Francisco.
He finally found something that was called a mega event, and that's where he was able to take a report and give me a tracking number. So that's the only anchor I have for this whole event with anybody is that tracking number, especially now that the ship is denying that anything ever happened.
We did not hear back from Princess Cruises or the San Francisco Department of Public Health, and Seraphin says he doesn't feel Princess Cruises is taking enough action as they get ready to dock.
We're not getting tested, so the Bay Area is getting us as is with no information about what happened here after the dancers and the singers and everybody else had to quarantine.
It was a late-night jolt that ground the nation's third-largest school district to a halt and sent parents scrambling to make alternate arrangements for their children.
I'm not prepared. I did hear about it in the news, but I just kind of assumed that they will find some way around it.
Chicago Mayor Lori Lightfoot canceled all classes but threw parents a lifeline. She kept school doors open so children had a place to get their meals and stay if needed, but there would be no classwork, at least for the day.
When our district was fully remote, our children suffered. There's no disputing that reality. We saw triple the amount of failures in elementary school testing and learning. Triple. And that fell most disproportionately on Black and brown and poor kids across our district.
With only 33% of children ages 5 to 17 fully vaccinated nationwide, new pediatric cases continue to rise, and schools across the country continue to struggle with balancing student and staff safety with making sure the learning continues. Of the 5 largest school districts, only Los Angeles requires a negative test before coming to class. The others are opting for social distancing and masking. This morning, New York City's new mayor, Eric Adams, insisted the only option for the nation's largest school district is keeping the classrooms open.
The safest place for a child is in school. Little Johnny's not in school. He's not in his room. He's in the streets. He doesn't have his mask on.
Today in Philadelphia, nearly half of the public schools were forced to go virtual because of staff shortages due to the virus. Maya McGathy's 2 sons are now back to remote learning for the rest of the week.
This is beyond deja vu. We should already know what to do and how to do it so no one feels like they're scrambling. Parents have arrangements. Children have food. The satellite centers are opened up and properly done.
Tonight, Walmart closing another area store in order to sanitize now. This one located on South Philadelphia Boulevard, right in Aberdeen. They will use the time to clean and stock shelves, they say.
And another Walmart location is temporarily closed for cleaning to help slow the spread of COVID-19. The store on South State Road 7 in Hollywood closed at 2 p.m. today. This is to allow crews to thoroughly clean and sanitize the building.
Walmart announcing a third Metro Atlanta store will be closing briefly for cleaning and to give staff time to restock. The Griffin location on North Expressway closed yesterday and will reopen tomorrow at 6 a.m. Last week, stores in Duluth and Noonan closed for the same reason. Walmart says when each store reopens, they will continue to follow local and federal guidance to stop the spread of COVID.
The COVID surge is impacting Duval County, with stores being forced to temporarily close and debates over mask mandates reigniting.
And this doctor says that a deep clean is not going to do much in preventing the spread of the virus. He's wondering if they closed for another reason. Walmart's global communications director released this statement Sunday. Quote, as you know, several areas across the country have begun seeing a renewed increase in positive COVID-19 cases, mainly among the unvaccinated, and we want to assist health officials working against the pandemic.
Homeland security begins with hometown security. That's why I'm pleased that Walmart is helping to make our communities more safe and secure. If you see something suspicious in the parking lot or in the store, say something immediately. Report suspicious activity to your local police or sheriff. If you need help, ask a Walmart manager for assistance.
As part of this effort, we have chosen to temporarily close our Jacksonville store location at 6830 Normandy Boulevard today at 2 p.m. as part of a company-initiated program.
There hasn't been a lot to suggest that closing a store for deep cleaning, for example, is something that's really necessary or particularly helpful. So there may be more to that story than we know about right now.
We reached out to Walmart corporate headquarters, and a spokesperson told me a Walmart in Lynn Haven is closed for the same reason: COVID cleaning protocols.
It's a case of deja vu. Empty shelves from the Whole Foods in Campbell to Palo Alto and Redwood City. But it's not the only supermarket chain with low inventory. Social media users have been posting empty shelves at Trader Joe's, Safeway, and Target stores, among others, across the country.
A lot of produce was just out. Like the green onions gone, like the apples I was looking for weren't there.
This isn't yet another case of panic buying that we saw in 2020. Instead, global supply issues, winter weather impacting delivery trucks out east, and record high COVID-19 infections have finally collided.
Because of warehouse shortages, because of truck driver shortages, companies are either shipping partial orders, not shipping orders at all.
I'm wondering if workers that normally tend to those things are just out sick.
One employee who wants to remain anonymous told KPIX5 the entire seafood department at the Campbell Whole Foods has been out sick with COVID-19 for weeks. Shipments have been sparse, and consumer demand is driving up prices.
So I was looking for milk. I noticed that the milk is very hard to find.
And this East Bay mom says that's not all.
Toilet paper, the cleaning supplies.
Everything from milk to medicine, gone. Grocery stores, drugstores, empty shelves all over the Bay Area and across the country. Shoppers sifting through empty shelves, noticing the change and dealing with it because they've been through it before.
That's just where the times are now. I mean, they'll pick up, they'll change.
Investors are seeing the pressure it's putting on companies and bracing for high costs for labor, transportation, and of course, food.
And include beef, pork, eggs, even maple syrup is what we're hearing from some folks that deal with supply chain management. This comes as the Omicron variant and coronavirus cases continue to rise, fueling a workforce shortage. We're told there's a shortage of truckers, a shortage of workers at the warehouses, plus fewer meat cutters, massive staffing challenges that have reignited supply chain struggles. As you can see in the video and picture, some grocery stores are opting to let shelves go empty, while again others are exploring other brands, less popular brands, hoping to give consumers other options.
Bare shelves are another problem. Supply chain shortages are hitting grocery stores on even the most basic of items.
Now to that announcement from the governor's office. Some of those long lines hopefully will be getting a little shorter. The governor now deploying California National Guard to testing sites across the state. The goal is to get more people tested for COVID faster. The video his office shared with us tonight. You can see members of the California National Guard arriving at a testing site in Antioch. This is at the community center on Lone Tree Way. Now, on Monday, that site will be able to double the number of appointments it offers each day. Not just Antioch, additional sites in Contra Costa County, as well as Alameda, Santa Clara, and Napa, will also be receiving help from the National Guard. More than 200 personnel will be deployed to 50 community testing sites overall.
With breaking news, Governor Gavin Newsom activating the California National Guard to help ramp up COVID-19 testing across the state. In a statement, the governor's office said that over 200 Guard members will be deployed across 50 sites to increase access to testing, increase staff, and add walking capacity.
Medical experts believe Omicron is more contagious than any other variant that we have seen, leaving some East Texans concerned about experiencing another lockdown.
Matter of fact, I just left the drug emporium and I took my booster shot because after hearing the speech that the president made last night, I was very concerned about this.
That's one of the reasons why President Biden wants to use FEMA funds for COVID testing.
The new order directs the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services to use the funding to create and run testing sites in coordination with state and local public health departments. The White House says the goal is to fight and respond to the pandemic with the full capability of the federal government.
With lines for rapid COVID tests snaking nationwide, wait times for more accurate PCR test results are also stretching longer.
I would love to have my results. I want to go back to work.
There we go. Today, NBC News got a rare look inside one of the largest testing facilities in the country.
Is this running basically 24/7 now?
Correct. 24/7, 365. We never shut down.
This is Northwell Health's 100,000 square foot core lab outside New York City.
These samples were processed just within the last few hours. These arrived just within the past day and are about to be put into a machine like that one. Right now, this lab alone is handling 25,000 tests a day.
Of those tests, about a third turn out to be COVID positive. Virtually all, Dr. Dwayne Brining says, are Omicron.
How quickly did the Omicron variant really take hold?
From 1 week to the next, it went from 20% of our cases to 80% of our cases. That was about 2 weeks ago, so we're up in the 100% range now.
The typical turnaround time for test results here is less than 48 hours. Other smaller labs are taking much longer.
So far we're hanging on, but we're hanging on by our fingernails.
Northwell is also launching a new system where patients can track their results by scanning a unique barcode with their smartphones.
This tube comes into the laboratory. When it's received here, you get a text message that says your specimen's in the laboratory.
But for those still waiting,
what would you tell people who are frustrated that we're not further along in testing nearly 2 years into this pandemic?
Yeah, I think it's taken a while for government to get on its footing and to have a coherent response to this. I think we're more on the right track now than we were before, but we're still catching up to this.
Mutations would strongly suggest that it would be more transmissible and that it might evade some of the protection of monoclonal antibodies and convalescent plasma and perhaps even antibodies that are induced by vaccine.
We've got 4 BSL-4 labs in the United States, 59 in the world. They need to go to work right now to tell us whether or not this new variant binds to antibodies. That's a very simple scientific experiment. It's been done with other variants. We've got the entire world economy on hold right now. We need this answer. We've got $54 billion at the NIH and CDC. They need to go to work and get this question answered because we've got elective surgery on hold, flights being banned, and all kinds of things going on.
Well, and we've got elected officials around the world, particularly on the continent of Africa, that are pretty upset with Biden right now, saying, well, why are you singling them out and punishing South Africa for actually finding the variant?
Well, this is a very simple experiment. You take the new variant of the virus and you take the antibodies and you see whether or not they bind in a cell culture medium. That needs to be done right now. Instead, we get all of this sort of fluff about how we're partnering and talking closely. We're on top of it. Don't worry, the government has it. We don't hear anything about the new medications, the new antivirals like Merck's that's going to get approved tomorrow. Instead, we hear the same old narrative about get your booster, ignoring natural immunity. People want the real answer. They don't want to hear speculation right now.
The president said the decision came at the recommendation of his COVID team, including Dr. Fauci. But Fauci...
We call upon these countries that have imposed travel bans on our country and our other Southern African sister countries to immediately and urgently reverse their decisions. Now, these restrictions are completely unjustified and unfairly discriminate against our country and our Southern African sister countries.
Well, look, it makes people feel good when you have a travel ban after testing has matured like we do now. And look, I'm not opposed to a travel ban right now, but it's got to be more flexible. When you have humanitarians and medical researchers trying to get back and forth and they can't, or people trying to get back to a funeral. Look, I think non-essential travel at this point could be put on hold until we get that experiment done in the BSL-4 lab. But look, we really knew about this on November 10th. So the idea that somehow we acted as soon as we got the information, that's not actually accurate. Any evidence that it's going to evade immunity, 95% of the spike protein is identical to previous variants. So we have a lot of reasons to believe that despite the number of mutations on the Omicron surface, that immunity from vaccination or natural immunity encompasses that. And the new antiviral medications are pan-coronavirus antivirals. So they will work against all variants, and we'll have those very soon.
From concerts to college campuses, from the office to the bar. Proof of vaccination is quickly becoming common, and there's concern fake vaccine cards could become the new fake ID. We found blank cards for sale on social media and even purchased these on Amazon in an effort to identify a scam. The ad displayed a yellow international vaccine card, but arrived with what appear to be real blank COVID vaccine cards too. We're turning the cards over to authorities. What are the legal implications of buying or selling a fake vaccine card?
So it kind of depends on the situation.
FBI Special Agent Sean Reagan says they've been working to fight vaccine card fraud for months.
Utilizing an official insignia of a federal agency, that would be a federal violation.
The unauthorized use of the CDC logo is a federal offense. So if you were to forge this blank document or create a fake one with the CDC logo, it's punishable with a fine and up to 5 years in prison. And that's just the federal charges.
If you're using the internet, for example, there could be various violations, both at the state and at the federal level.
businesses. That includes restaurants, gyms, and concert venues. Right now on the shelves of popular drugstores, there's a run on at-home tests. Tonight, Walgreens said in a statement, due to the incredible demand for at-home rapid testing, we put in effect a 4-item purchase limit on at-home COVID-19 testing products in our stores and digital properties. CVS is limiting customers to 6. Due to a recent surge in demand and to retain community-based access to tests in our stores, there may be temporary out-of-stocks for these products on CVS.com.
Omicron may be quickly becoming the dominant variant of the COVID-19 in the United States. According to a White House official, President Joe Biden is expected to make a speech Tuesday to address a growing number of cases and hospitalizations. He'll also likely talk about how Omicron appears to weaken the effect of 4 major vaccines and every authorized antibody treatment.
Cases of the new variant, Omicron, now confirmed in at least 10 states, 5 more in just the past 24 hours, including Nebraska, where cases are linked to a person who traveled to Nigeria. Early data suggesting the new variant may be spreading twice as fast as the Delta variant in South Africa. Omicron's concerning structure, more than 30 mutations on its spike protein. And news tonight on whether Omicron is more likely to cause reinfection for those who've already had COVID.
They are asking for all of those pages in 108 days. That's the same amount of time it took the FDA to review and license Pfizer's vaccine. So why can't we look at all of that information? We've paid billions of dollars to Pfizer, and they won't give us any transparency. What do you think you're going to find, and why are they working so hard to shut it off for the next century?
Yeah, it's even worse than Pfizer not giving the documents. It is the FDA the taxpayer-funded agency that's supposed to be looking out for our interests, that the FDA reviews those same documents in a review they said was thorough and complete and robust in just 108 days to license Pfizer's COVID-19 vaccine product for use in America. But yet when it comes to being transparent about those documents it reviewed, the documents it received from Pfizer, it's saying that it will only produce about 500 pages a month. So with over 450,000 pages, what that means is the documents won't be fully produced until the year at least 2096, when most Americans today probably will have moved on to the next world.
Right. The debate over those new CDC guidelines on isolation and quarantine after infection or exposure. Some doctors asking why not require a test before being in the clear.
With the COVID surge now nearing record levels, averaging 240,000 cases a day, scenes reminiscent of the early days of the pandemic. Lines of cars stretching as far as the eye can see. From Virginia to New Jersey, Miami to Philadelphia, tonight soaring demand for tests and a backlog of holiday reporting have driven COVID cases to 440,000, the highest one-day total ever. Still, hospitals under strain are warning it will only get worse.
We have no beds. We're holding patients in the ER for multiple hours, if not days, multiple days.
And tonight, new clues about Omicron. A CDC report suggests the incubation period may be as little as 3 days as compared to 4 for Delta and at least 5 days for the original strain. Just yesterday, the CDC shortened the recommended isolation period for asymptomatic people to 5 days, followed by 5 days of masking, but the guidance making no mention of a test before leaving isolation.
I actually think it would help a lot if we did ask people to get a negative test as well. It would actually make a big difference. So I don't know why the CDC did not put that in. I suspect it might be because tests are still hard to come by, and that may make it even harder.
They're saying that the Omicron variant has been reported in 89 countries, with the number of cases doubling every 1.5 to 3 days. And it's spreading in countries where there's high immunity. Why that's happening, they don't know. So there's very limited data available right now. And as you can imagine, scientists and public health officials around the world are scrambling, trying to figure out why. In a briefing this week by the CDC, they're saying that cases with Omicron jumping 7-fold in just 1 week. So all the public health agencies around the world watching this very closely. Yeah, let's start in Europe, because the very latest is that the Netherlands has just announced a national lockdown to stop the spread. The Dutch government announced today that they are introducing new measures, including a strict lockdown, closing all non-essential shops starting at 5 a.m. Sunday to last until January 14. You know, I call it the merry-go-round and around. It really feels like deja vu. London in the UK, not good at all. The mayor in London declaring a major incident to help their hospitals cope. At the same time that this is happening, we're seeing people protesting on the streets in London against vaccine mandates and vaccine passports. This at the same time that in that same city on Friday, London reported the highest 24-hour increase in the number of new cases since the pandemic started, and Omicron making up 80% of new cases.
So there are actually different tests based on when you test. So as you start developing the disease, what we're looking for is cell infected by the virus, and usually we check for genetic material. So if you read a little bit, that's what's called RT-PCR kits. Some other countries are doing sequencing, but basically you look at genetics. And then as the disease progresses, we can actually look for antibodies. So there are also different tests related to that. And then finally, for patients in emergency care, they usually do chest scan. So different technology require different supply. That's one aspect. The other aspect, as I said, is that there are different techniques that you can use. So it really requires an entire strategy of, what technique you can use around what stage of the disease. Right now, we're relying a lot on RT-PCR. but we could, do a mix of the different techniques, basically.
No, there's no space, they yell. Unheard, unheeded in the chaos. In the land of rivers, millions on the move. A panicked rush to leave Dhaka after the government declared not a national emergency, but a 10-day national holiday to combat COVID-19.
The southern summer is in full swing on the crowded beaches of Cape Town, where life seems completely normal. Many South Africans think their country is being unnecessarily characterized as a pandemic hotspot.
Compared to other countries, I don't think we're doing as bad as the countries that are blocking us from coming into their country.
I think it is because we are a developing country. That's why they are putting us on the red list. But if we were like America, then we wouldn't be on a red list.
This developing country discovered the Omicron variant and is still studying it. In this laboratory in Durban, 2/3 of the continent's COVID samples have been analysed. South African scientists who are at the forefront of global COVID research have published several studies with similar conclusions. The Omicron variant causes less severe disease than the other variants. South African hospitals have never been full with the Omicron variant. Experts believe that South Africans have developed herd immunity during previous waves. With the health system under no pressure, authorities did not want to impose further restrictions. They still encourage people to get vaccinated, and almost 40% of the adult population has done so.
COVID-19 hits China again. After traveling around the globe, COVID-19 that originated in Wuhan has struck again in Shijiazhuang City in northern China. Chinese authorities are concerned that this resurgent virus may spread faster this winter and are building a massive 4,160-bed facility to house patients and those who have come in contact with the patients. Mainland China posted 118 cases a day on the 18th of January, up from 109 a day earlier. Over 20,000 residents of villages in the surrounding Hebei province have been sent into quarantine in centralized facilities, Chinese state media reported last week. The facility has entered the final stage of construction, and it will soon become operational. Basic infrastructure and lighting were completed, while air conditioners and water heaters are still being installed. Since 13th of January, builders have worked day and night to complete the project in time. This lockdown puts a massive dent for global economic recovery, but luckily, we do have an immunization plan in place, and we are better prepared to handle this crisis this time around.
After bringing the COVID-19 outbreak within its borders largely under control, China is now battling its worst outbreak in almost a year, as cases continue to emerge in the northern part of the country. Health authorities reported 118 new coronavirus cases on Tuesday, 43 in northeastern Jilin, a new daily record for the province. Infections were also confirmed in Heilongjiang and Hebei province, which surrounds Beijing, the Chinese capital, which itself reported one new case. Millions have been placed under lockdown, and cities have issued advisories telling people not to travel to their hometowns this year. A fourth northern province, Liaoning, has also imposed quarantines and travel restrictions. There's also concern about a growing number of asymptomatic cases, which China does not count as part of its tally. Health authorities reported the case of an asymptomatic superspreader in Jilin province who was linked to over 100 infections.
For New South Wales, our blueprint for freedom. The message to the unvaccinated is that you will not achieve any further freedom unless you get vaccinated. And a further and final message to regional New South Wales. There are parts of regional New South Wales that are currently open. the 70% roadmap does apply to the whole state. So there will be individuals in regional rural New South Wales who choose not to be vaccinated who will lose their freedoms.
It's very important to note that unlike most places in the world, if you're not vaccinated, you'll have to wait at least 4 or 5 weeks after we've already hit the 80% double dose rate in order to participate in things that the rest of us can participate in. We anticipate, fingers crossed, by the time that third stage of reopening happens on the 1st of December, we anticipate, Dr. Chan have got our fingers crossed to have 93% of our adult population completely vaccinated. So that is a big high jump for people to have to go through if you're not vaccinated. The message is, if you want to be able to have a meal with friends, if you want to welcome people into your home, you have to get vaccinated. That's a simple message. And if you don't, if you choose not to, that's okay, but you'll have to wait a long time before you can participate in other activity. In most other places in the world, the rate is lower, that people have to wait less if they're not vaccinated. We're taking a very conservative approach. We don't want to overwhelm our hospital system. We need to be clear that once we start reopening at 70% double dose, our case numbers will increase. There'll be more mobility, more activity, but what will protect us is that rate of vaccination. And I personally will take personal responsibility when I'm meeting with my parents, even though we're all fully vaccinated, because the vulnerable are still prone to getting the disease and ending up in hospital. And we need to make sure that all those safety measures are in place. So the strongest message to those that are unvaccinated is you're going to have to wait weeks and weeks and weeks. In fact, you're going to have to wait several months before you can do anything. Most of us who are fully vaccinated will be able to participate in community life, in hospitality in 2 weeks' time. Those of you who are unvaccinated will have to wait at least another couple of months before that happens.
Governor Abbott's announcement that Texas government agencies will not be allowed to require a so-called vaccine passport. He announced on Twitter that he'd signed a new executive order that also prohibits organizations receiving public funds from requiring consumers to provide documentation of vaccine status. This stirred up a lot of questions, so we want to answer the ones that we can. First, we require vaccine proof for children to attend school. What's the difference?
In Texas, any parent can file an affidavit that says for reasons of conscience or religion, they don't want their children to be vaccinated.
It's the same tune in question in 2022. When will we get back to normal? The unrelenting COVID-19 surge means some very big challenges for schools, courts, and other places, both public and private. More than 21,000 today and over 23,000 yesterday. The county also had 4 more deaths this weekend, and hospitalizations have spiked to over 1,600.
Adding to the strain on resources, more people are dialing 911 and going to emergency rooms. And first responders say they're doing it for minor concerns that shouldn't flood phone lines.
In a tweet this weekend, San Francisco Mayor London Breed revealed how many frontline city workers are out because of COVID-19. 184 from the San Francisco Police Department, 140 from the Fire Department, and 122 Muni workers. And those absences come as more people are calling 911 for help as the current COVID-19 surge continues.
The World Health Organization addressing a COVID variant discovered in France around the same time as Omicron, called the IHU variant, named for the institution that discovered it. It has infected just a dozen people.
We are going to see variants come up and be identified and be publicized over and over and over again. But only a few variants ever rise.
He says on average, there's a new variant every 2 weeks, but they rarely escalate to a variant of concern by the WHO.
Things in the lab aren't always scary in real life. We saw this before with Lambda and Mu and even the California variant. It kind of stuck around regionally, never really went anywhere.
As for the recent spike of Omicron, Dr. Chin Hong says he's seeing hospitalizations jump in San Francisco, but it's still about half of where it was a year ago.
There are future variants that they will impact us less because we have so much immunity in our population.
We are going to see more and more variants until enough people are immune at the same time.
As the Omicron surge escalates, business is slowing down again. A lot of places having trouble keeping staff on hand and the doors open.
Christine, you drive by, you see a line, you see a tent or a trailer like this one and a sign like this that says free COVID-19 test, PCR testing. Should you pull over and stop? Well, one medical professional we spoke to say, not so quickly. Make sure that you see obvious signs like these.
They said it was
just COVID-free PCR, same-day results. Not all COVID-19 testing sites may appear as they're advertised.
Here we are a week from the day that I came and still don't have any of my results.
Dr. Joseph Verone with United Memorial Medical Center says people have to be cautious of where they're lining up to take a test.
The question is, how do you know? I mean, what are the big red flags? Well, first, if you have a site that is not affiliated with like a local medical provider.
Dr. Verone says you should not have to ask for that. Can I have a card for the name of your business?
No. Look it up.
Any site following standard procedure should tell you. Dr. Verone also says testing staff following proper procedures would wear gloves, an N95 mask and shield, and should label and place your test samples in a biohazard bag right in front of you.
There is no regulation, and that is a problem. The lack of regulation allows pretty much anybody to become their own little pop-up testing site.
He's noticed testing sites popping up everywhere since last April.
I think that the first game is money. At the end of the day is money. People want to make money, and this is to some extent easy money because the government is going to pay you an amount.
Dr. Verone is urging people to research and find a reputable site instead of joining the first line you see.
You have to understand that the information that you are receiving from a COVID test may actually cost you your life.
The federal government has had to spend trillions of dollars to try to keep Americans alive during this pandemic, so it is absolutely the government's business. We want to give people a sense that they have the freedom to choose, but we hope they choose to live. We hope people make the right choices. We want them to have the right information, but we are America. We try to give people as much freedom and choice as possible, but clearly when over 600,000 Americans have died, the best choice is to get vaccinated.
Listen, I think that's the wrong approach, especially right now in the pandemic with mixed messages that have been coming out of Washington lately on a lot of things, including the vaccines. I think the people that haven't gotten vaccinated just don't have a lot of trust in the government, and I certainly understand that. What I've been telling people is we don't need a government mandate. We need people to talk to your doctor, talk to the folks at your hospital, ask them, of COVID patients that are coming in now, are they vaccinated or not? Do you think the vaccine is helping? Ask your doctor that. Ask your local pharmacy that. Ask your family members that have been vaccinated or your faith leaders or other people. We don't need a tyrant in government that's going to go around and do this. That scares people. I think it personally runs them off from trusting the vaccine. So that's my message back to him.
It's absolutely the government's business. And then he tweeted out later in the day, yesterday afternoon, some comments I made today are being taken wildly out of context. To be clear, government has no database tracking who is vaccinated. We're encouraging people to step up to protect themselves and others by getting vaccinated. It's the best way to save lives and end this pandemic.
Well, they became fixtures during the pandemic, but now restaurants in Pleasanton are having to scrap their outdoor dining parklets, which they rely on so heavily to stay open. The city ordered businesses to take them down for now, even as this new surge has people wanting to eat outside more.
Late tonight, the Hayward Unified School Board moving classes next week to online for all students, citing a spike in teachers and students getting COVID.
As of this morning, we had 507 student positive cases.
Milpitas parents and students also finding out today next week's classes will be online. In a letter, the superintendent implementing a 10-day district-wide quarantine, returning to in-person Tuesday the 18th. The district making the change due to an exorbitant number of positive student and staff cases, saying they've had 167 substitute teacher positions and 107 support staff positions unfilled as a result, adding that families without Wi-Fi or childcare can come to the physical campus to log on for virtual learning while socially distancing.
The school administration is really trying to look into the wellness of each student as the COVID cases goes up.
All of this comes as 500 Oakland Unified School District teachers called in sick today, many as part of a planned sick out to highlight their COVID concerns. That forced the district to cancel classes for the following 12 schools, impacting more than 8,000 students.
And perhaps it's because people know deep in their heart that it's not as big a problem now. It's not nearly as as virulent and powerful and likely to cause you death. Plus, we know a lot more about it and how to treat it. And particularly a lot of the people in the medical field who were on the front lines, who are now losing their jobs, who were heroes months ago and now are goats. Are you kidding me?
Right.
I mean, is this America? Is this a place where people have freedom of choice? Or are we going to sit here like sheep and allow it to be taken away from us?
Dr. Rashid Buttar at one time had more than 1 million followers and is considered one of the top spreaders of disinformation about COVID-19.
More people are dying from the COVID vaccine than from COVID.
That is not true. Neither is his tweet that the Red Cross won't accept blood from people who have had the COVID-19 vaccine. He posted most who took COVID vaccines will be dead by 2025. But his biggest whopper is the overarching conspiracy theory that COVID was a planned operation, which was politically motivated as part of a secret global plot to depopulate the earth.
You believe the pandemic was planned?
I do.
Okay. But you don't know by whom?
I have no idea.
And you don't know why?
Well, I suspect that there's the research that's coming now that would indicate that it's probably something to reduce the population or minimize reproduction rates.
It would be laughable if it wasn't so dangerous. Buttar compares COVID and the vaccine to World War II and Dr. Anthony Fauci to Adolf Hitler.
Fauci is a criminal. You talk about Hitler? Okay, well.
Whoever Dr. Fauci is in your mind, he is a government bureaucrat, and you're comparing him to Hitler.
Well, I mean,
to Nazis.
I am.
Who killed 6 million Jews.
I think this number is going to be higher.
You think Dr. Fauci is involved in some kind of plot to kill millions of people? I just want to
Drew,
make sure I understand
again,
this.
Drew, I'm a reasonable person. You're asking me what I think, and I said it could be this, but I can tell you that Dr. Fauci is not an innocent bystander. He's very well aware of what he's doing, and the extent of it and his involvement, I don't know. I'm not privy to that information.
He is just one of the doctors spreading dangerous COVID disinformation to millions of people across social media, according to the Center for Countering Digital Hate. Buttar is encouraging people to distrust life-saving vaccines. And like other disinformers, he is using false, twisted information and unproven conspiracies to do it.
Do you think the COVID vaccine works?
I think that the COVID vaccine is very effective at what it was designed for, perhaps, but it's not preventing death, certainly not.
With indisputable facts, Buttar doubles down on his belief that life-saving vaccines are more dangerous than the virus itself.
People don't die from COVID. You've already seen the data. So why are we getting a vaccine that causes more deaths than the problem itself?
If you're right, people be dropping dead all around this hotel.
It's not orchestrated to do that.
It's not orchestrated to do that.
Each vaccine has been geared up. So you can look at the ingredients of the vaccines themselves. It's all been published.
Complete the sentence. Each vaccine has been geared up for what?
Well,
there's a timed part?
Each vaccine is designed, it appears to be different. I don't know the details because I'm not a vaccine developer.
Scientific corruption.
Because of his disinformation, Buttar has been removed from Facebook and Instagram, but he's still going strong on Twitter, Telegram, and his own website, all filled with falsehoods.
We already see thousands of people dying. This Delta variant is all vaccine injury. I mean, the CDC's own data is showing that now. This mass genocide that I see happening, and I think that what's going on right now will be remembered as a worst time in history compared to what World War II happened.
And yet I have an unrestricted license to practice for 30 years.
CNN contacted medical boards in all 50 states. Half of them responded. Only 2, Rhode Island and Oregon, said they had actually disciplined doctors for coronavirus misinformation or related violations. That is despite hundreds of complaints. The Federation of State Medical Boards issued a warning to physicians who generate and spread COVID-19 vaccine misinformation or disinformation that they are risking disciplinary action, including the suspension or revocation of their medical license.